There is so much to process after what went down here tonight in Columbus, Ohio. We are moments removed from our broadcast on Access TV. Tom Hannifan alongside the Drama King Matthew Rehwoldt, a star-studded 5-on-5 tag team match in our main event that saw Nick Aldis show his true colors.
I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't say I didn't halfway expect it. As soon as Nick Aldis showed back up at Rebellion, you know his history, you know who he is at heart. I had a feeling, and we saw it come out in full colors here tonight.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about Nick Aldis and the Impact World title picture a little bit later on here on the Impact Post Show. But I want to start off with the bombshell that was dropped around the middle of the broadcast. We saw Bully Ray. He was filing an official complaint to Anthem Sports and Entertainment after what went down at Against All Odds, how Scott D'Amore returned, got involved in the 8-4-1 match, and in the mind of Bully Ray, cost Bully Ray the #1 contendership to the Impact World Championship. Now, that is a stretch by Bully Ray. However, what has happened is that Scott D'Amore is taking a leave of absence as the president of Impact Wrestling. However, he made a match before he took that leave of absence.
So it's Slammiversary! Steve Macklin, Bully Ray against PCO and me!
Oh my God! A lot to unpack here. First of all, the communication between PCO and Scott D'Amore. Very curious to see how that goes.
Sure. I mean, they're both Canadian, but that's about where I see the end of it.
That's where the Venn diagram might end. Now, obviously, Scott D'Amore believes in PCO. He granted him the Impact World title shot that he got at Under Siege very recently against then-champion Steve Macklin. So, I understand that part. Scott D'Amore, however, has not been a full-time competitor in professional wrestling in about 20 years. His last major live televised match was in 2008. He's a 5-time Canadian heavyweight champion, has a fantastic resume in the ring, but you gotta remember, it's been a long time. This is Bully Ray. This is Steve Macklin.
I mean, and Tom, I can tell you from personal experience, I missed about a year of in-ring action, went back to wrestle a little bit. Even just that amount of time, I was totally lost from my former self. I had to work so hard just to get back into what I thought was ring shape and ready to go. I mean, Scott, this is going to be an uphill battle, especially with the SOBs like Macklin and Bully. What they brought out of each other is sickening, and what they're willing to do, I hope Scott and PCO are ready.
Yeah, we know we're going to get a preview, and that Bully Ray and Macklin are teaming up next week against Frankie Kazarian and Eddie Edwards. There's a lot to digest between those two, but still, we're going to get a glimpse at Macklin and Bully Ray. Scott D'Amore has this opportunity, however, to stand up on behalf of himself, Impact Wrestling, Anthem Sports and Entertainment. This was a big deal up at 25 York and Maple Leaf Square in Toronto that Scott D'Amore had to take this leave of absence, but he gets to do it in his hometown of Windsor, Ontario, Canada. 4 weeks from Saturday, July 15th, Slammiversary, live on pay-per-view, Fight TV, DAZN internationally. Home turf advantage. But there's a lot of time.
Yeah, is that enough?
A lot can happen between now and then.
No kidding. And home field advantage is all well and good, but when you've got that hell-on-earth combo, as you very aptly put it, and I hate to say that, but between Macklin and Bully Ray, I don't know what Scott is going to have to do to overcome that.
We are absolutely going to keep an eye on that, but when we come back here on the Impact Post Show, we're going to dive into the situation surrounding the Knockouts World Championship, what happened in our main event, as well as the Impact World title.
To change is to adapt. It is to fail. It is a necessity for success. A change will come.
Welcome to Slammiversary!
Live from Windsor, Ontario, Canada.
Here's to the future of Impact Wrestling!
Impact Wrestling presents Slammiversary. Live from St. Clair College. Saturday, July 15th on pay-per-view and Fight.
On site here in Columbus, Ohio, the fans are filing out of the Ohio Expo Center after what was an astonishing, star-studded, all-star 5-on-5 tag team matchup in our main event. I want to talk about the Knockouts Championship picture because we saw how Trinity and Deonna Purrazzo were defending each other, sticking up for each other, which isn't necessarily a surprise. They're tag team partners at Against All Odds and were successful. We know it's Purrazzo versus Trinity for the Knockouts World Championship at Slammiversary. That's Saturday, July 15th in Windsor, Ontario. However, before that, Giselle Shaw, we learned earlier on tonight, gets a title shot in Australia. What did you think about that?
Well, first off, I'm so glad you knew all these dates because there's so much going on in Impact here. I can't keep track of it. I'm glad one of us can. But we talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. I mean, and Santino Marella made it clear. If Giselle Shaw is successful, that match at Slammiversary becomes a three-way match with Giselle Shaw defending her new Knockouts World Championship against both Trinity and Deonna Purrazzo. So it is in both Purrazzo's interest as well as Trinity's to hope and pray that that match stays a singles match because that is the cleanest, most obvious way to a championship if you're Trinity. You don't want to have to enter a triple threat situation where you don't have to be pinned or submitted to lose your championship opportunity there.
And let's also think about Deonna Purrazzo in that you were looking ahead to Slammiversary. It's a first-time ever matchup. I believe Trinity versus Purrazzo, one of the most important matchups in this company's history at our 21-year anniversary broadcast, Slammiversary. Theoretically, let's say Shaw were to win on Saturday, July 1st in Wagga Wagga, live on Fight TV at the Down Under Tour event and capture the Knockouts World Championship. Is the triple threat the lone rematch that Deonna Purrazzo gets? We don't know.
I'll tell you, if you're a champion, that's not the rematch you want for those exact reasons I said before. Because if you want a rematch, you want it one-on-one because you just want to make up for those mistakes you might have made in the earlier matchup. Either way, you're going to want this to be a one-on-one match, but Giselle Shaw could spoil all of that.
Now, talk about spoiling things. Australia's upcoming on Friday, June 30th, live on Fight. That's at 5 a.m. Eastern. It'll be available on demand, so don't worry. If you're sleeping in, you can still watch it on Fight. Part of the Down Under Tour, Steve Macklin gets his contractual one-on-one rematch against Alex Shelley for the Impact World title. Now, we talked about it before the break. Macklin has got his hands full in terms of himself and Bully Ray against PCO and Scott D'Amore at Slammiversary. However, Macklin could throw off everything at Slammiversary, and now what Nick Aldis did earlier on tonight, I've called it showing his true colors. I talked about it at Against All Odds. We remember the infamous Dixieland matchup about a decade ago when he won his lone Impact World Championship against Jeff Hardy. He has done some terrible, dastardly things many years ago. Many had hoped, myself included, he left it behind. And apparently he's willing to do anything to win the Impact World title against Shelley at Slammiversary.
It's the old Popeye quote, right? I am's who I am's. Is that what it is? And Nick Aldis is who Nick Aldis is. And quite frankly, kind of like people like Kenny King tried to point out before, you know what? Maybe we should have seen it coming. Maybe, just maybe, Alex Shelley should have seen it coming.
Alex Shelley has to adapt now, and this is uncharted territory for Alex Shelley. He's never been world champion before.
He made it to the top. It's a lot different standing on there and taking on all the comers. It's a lot different being at the top than climbing to the top.
Nick Aldis is guaranteed that at Slammiversary he's become the Impact World Champion for a second time. But here's the thing. Aldis talked about that Shelley finally got to Aldis's level as a world champion. I think Aldis proved that his level is very, very low and that he stooped down to a level that probably was not necessary.
However, but that level got him to a world title before. Quite frankly, it could do it again.
We're going to have to find out. There is so much to unpack after Against All Odds, the road to the Down Under Tour in Australia, plus Slammiversary. It's going to be a rocky. Thank you for tuning in here on the Impact Post Show. We'll see you next week on Access TV.